survey according to BSR has shown that nearly 1 billion women are poised to enter the global economy over the next decade. Now, these women will shape business decisions as executives, employees, producers, consumers, even as political leaders. Yet these women, even in their sheer numbers, despite their strength, are still seen as going through significant barriers that stops them from realizing their potentials in contributing or as contributors to the inclusive economic growth. This is the Women's Series. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Women's Series. It is still the International Women's Month. All through the month, we're celebrating ourselves, and we continue in that line. The theme for the year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. I mean, we've considered different variations of how we can move forward gender equality in our nation. We've considered the political scene, we've considered the banking sector, we've considered the home and every other one. And now we want to look at the capital markets and how we can harness the capital markets for gender equality. My name is Ayomide Oguntoye. But before we meet our guest today, let's go on a quick break and we'll be back.
Tune in to Web TV Daily to stay up to date and informed on the financial market, personal finance, and more. We have got you covered with all your favorite TV shows, economy and politics, market review, women's series, millennial talk, Islamic Finance Weekly, The Brief, exclusive interviews, events, and we keep you up to date on all the updates in the financial market with the market opening gong. Watch premium content. Watch Web TV. Same news, different perspective.
Welcome back. This is still the Women's Series, where we capture developments and stories that impact women. Today, we're looking at how we can harness the capital markets for gender equality. And I'm speaking with a capital market expert, a friend of the house. I'm talking about Elizabeth Ekpo Udo. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Hi, Ayomide.
Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
You're welcome.
Privilege to be
Happy
here.
Women's Month.
Oh, same to you as
Are
well.
you celebrating the month?
Oh, of course. Anything to celebrate a woman is worth participating in. Yes.
Yeah, so some people have said that we celebrate the women too much. Are you of that opinion? Did you share that opinion?
No, I think we are not even celebrated enough, really. And it's because we are not celebrated enough. That's why we are taking time out, especially to celebrate these women in recognition of their contribution to society.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's good. As an expert in the capital markets, first of all, great work you're doing in that line, in that field.
Thank you.
For me, well, for someone like me that's find fact figures and numbers so scary. I mean, finding a woman doing this is quite inspiring.
Thank you.
I mean,
thank you so much.
Now, so let's quickly go straight into conversation for today. We're looking at how we can harness the capital markets for gender equality. Now, we've talked about the economic growth, and considering the fact that Nigeria, we have over, I mean, record has it that we're like 51% of the population, and that's women. We have 51% of women in Nigeria's population. Now, in terms of understanding the value of gender inclusion to economic growth. Now, when I talk about gender inclusion, a lot of people think, I try as much as possible to denounce it's not a gender war. I mean, all of this is because we want growth in the economy and how we can harness this to bring about economic growth. Now, in terms of understanding the value of gender inclusion to economic growth, how critical is bridging the gender gap to the global economy?
Okay, so I think we need to start from what is this gender inclusion we're talking about.
Yeah.
So gender inclusion is basically the notion that services, opportunities, or some certain establishments are open to all, and that the male or female stereotype do not define societal roles or expectations.
Right.
And so depending on research you're looking at, you'll see that gender inclusion can add close to 26 to 35% to the GDP of most countries if it is done properly. We've also seen that gender-based inequality.
That's only gender inclusion.
That's
26%.
Yes, to 36, depending on the research you're looking at. And we've seen that gender-based inequalities are barriers to the shared prosperity that we are all looking for. So you see that women economic empowerment will bring increased productivity. It will bring income diversification. It will even bring economic diversification in any economy that is able to bridge this gap between men and women. And also, it's also shown that where the men and women are treated equal, we find out that those societies are safer and they are also healthier. So it's really critical to really bridge that gap. So imagine if those 51% of women that you've identified as being that part of the population is brought fully into the economy, what the GDP or the economic growth of Nigeria will be.
Right. I mean, I say this all the time, that it is not, it's far from we saying we want women. I mean, we want everybody in that space. We want both the male, both the female. We want equal representation of these people. Not as if we're having just one phase as the leading force. I mean, let's have the variations.
Yeah, for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now we need women to get involved, not only as women, but also get involved and hold important offices in the capital markets, not just because they can, but because they best understand the needs of female investors. Now, how well do you think that this point would affect a climate such as Nigeria?
Well, I think it's really important because when we're looking at the expectations of a woman when it comes to investing. Generally, when advising people, there are certain characteristics of the person that needs to be put into consideration. So things like age, things like the legal framework in which the person can operate, things like their time, how much time they have. But there's also what we call the unique characteristics of everybody, which should come and which should be brought to bear in the investment portfolio of anyone. And for the women folk, that uniqueness that they have is what I think may be lacking when it comes to advising other women on investment opportunities. So yes, I believe a woman advisor will be able to identify with that more than a male advisor, but it also buttresses the point on why more awareness should be created on those unique characteristics that might be just definite to women, and how even male advisors can begin to identify this and begin to bring it up when advising women.
Right. So, I mean, you've talked about the investments and how this affects women as investors, right? Let's talk about women holding key positions in the capital markets. Do you think there are barriers that mitigating against women from holding such positions?
Yes, so I think more needs to be done. I mean, we've seen women in finance, those kind of initiatives which are trying to promote women in
successful careers.
Yes, trying to promote women. And we've seen maybe even in the banking sector where you now have some the CEOs of about seven banks or so that are female. But I think more still needs to be done. So what are the things that need to be done? There are different initiatives. More success stories like that of women who are doing well should be shared more. Women should be encouraged to take more risk, you know, in terms of, so you'll see that a role, for instance, maybe a role that has been advertised, a man just meeting just 60% of the expectations for that role will go for that role, but a woman may be waiting until she hits the whole 100% requirements for that role before applying for the role. So women need to be encouraged to take more risks. They need to believe in themselves more that they can do this. And sometimes because of the maybe high demand or pressure, they feel they might not be able to do it. So what we have more women role models whose success stories are out there, I think, to encourage more people to take up. And even being deliberate by organizations. So we've seen organizations these days committing to, you know, some gender equality or opportunities for women on their board. So we need to have more of that, where it's not just because you're a woman, but given an opportunity with the same competencies, with the same skill set, a woman should be allowed to compete for the role as much as a man. And it should not be because she's a woman, then she is denied if she's better qualified to take up this role.
Okay. So one thing I've asked over the course of this conversation, I mean, all through the months, would be people sharing, or women sharing some of the stereotypes that they've personally experienced, I mean, in their field because of their experience in their field. Now, could you share one of your stereotypes that is peculiar to you?
Well, I think one of the things that's peculiar to me is maybe in terms of negotiating power. So I've found that to be maybe peculiar, but because a man might be able to negotiate and be able to get what he wants more than a woman. I've had that experience, in the course of my career, where I'm being told, oh, because you were this before, we can't give you this, and so you need to just go to the next level. And I was able to take that, but seeing a male counterpart later down the line being offered 2-3 steps above that what he was before, and I'm beginning to wonder, why was it that when I negotiated I wasn't able to get that, but a man is able to get it? Could just speak to the stereotypes that we are talking about.
I mean, when you identified this, was it because you felt you did not negotiate well, or because you were looked down upon because you're a woman?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I can speak categorically to what was on the person's mind, but given what I saw, I mean, I went back and forth with this employer for 3-4 times, but my colleague, that's a guy, just went back once or twice, and he was able to get something higher offered to him. So, I mean, just on the face of it, you've got to ask a question.
Right.
Why
now
that
let's learn from your experience. Now, how best, are there tips or are there ways in which you can advise women to negotiate when it comes to negotiating skills? Rather, are there things they should take note of?
Yes, I think as women, we shouldn't be shy to ask for what we want, and we shouldn't be quick to settle. So we should be able to keep pushing to say, I deserve this. I think I can get this. Sometimes you are afraid that if you say no, they might just take the opportunity to somebody else. But it's good to push those limits to ensure that you're getting what you rightly deserve. And I think even the human resource personnel or employers as well should also be able to offer what should be the right salary scale for the level of competencies for a woman, and not based on gender. Yes.
Right. Well, sometimes I think about it. Why is gender even a problem? I mean, why? Aren't we all just human beings? Why?
You've got to wonder,
why?
right?
Seriously, sometimes I think about that. Do you people all actually analyze these things? I mean, we're both human beings, so why if I can do it, what's stopping?
Exactly.
Why should I be seen less of human?
Again, it's the stereotypes that, sometimes unconscious biases. Some people are not even aware that even we as women, sometimes we have these biases. So someone wants to lift up something and just think, oh, it's a man that should do it because he is more muscular. And, so unconsciously we have this bias. But being aware that these biases are there will help us to minimize them, because we can then, on a conscious basis, try to not stereotype people based on women or men, or because of their gender, to either what they can do, what they cannot do, or our expectations of them. Even in driving, sometimes you see, oh, she's a woman, that's why she drives like,
yes,
like that.
Someone in this room can testify to that. He says that a lot. And each time he says that, I'm trying to correct him. You don't, why? The moment you see that a woman is a woman, or someone is driving recklessly or not well, yeah, it's a woman driving.
You just say, oh, it's a woman, we can forgive her, that's fine.
That's why. Sometimes every time you go backwards, go home and go and park your car if you know you can't drive well. I mean, there's so many, right? Yes. Now let's talk about, you've highlighted one as the negotiation skill. One other one that might seem like it is the wage differential. So I was listening to Oprah one day, and she was talking about where she had a wage differential stereotype in the course of her career. She was co-anchoring a program. She was offered $20,000. Her male counterpart was offered $50,000. And she wondered, the moment she got to know, she's like, why? What's happening? So she approached the producer or the employer and said, my counterpart or my co-host is, as in, that's like how much difference. So why is he being paid higher than I am? And the person goes and says that, are you a man? She says, no. Do you have a home? She says, no. Do you have families? Do you have children? Do you have kids? She says, no. She's like, okay, so that answers your question. And she's like, wow, really? So let's talk about the capital markets as a base now. Do you think that this wage differential still operates in the capital market?
Well, I don't have the data to support that, but really, it will not be far-fetched if that is also present, because it's just the stereotypes that people have over time grown with, and they just feel because you are a man, and even in the negotiating power I'm talking about, you could see that, because the probably will feel, oh, because he's a man, he has more responsibilities, we can afford to offer him a higher level because we believe, you know, he's the one carrying or doing all the burden, all the burden on in the family. That could be a reason why you know, the man is able to negotiate better than. So it will not be far-fetched if this is if people are experiencing this in the capital market as well. But we need to do that. Even in today's societies, you know, the society has moved from where it was before, where women were only contributing in terms of taking care of the home, taking care of the children. Today we have women contributing financially to homes. In some homes, the women are even the breadwinner of those families. So we must begin to consciously shift, you know, have this paradigm shift as to why a man should be paid better than a woman for the same opportunity, the same job description, the same role that they are performing. So yeah, just people just need to be aware that
one other thing I wanted to address before we move on to past is the time working hours that I mean, we understand that investment banks and fund managers are notorious for long hours, long working hours, and this is demanded by their employers. Now, how do you think women can navigate this? I mean, we've talked about this over and over, but how can we keep navigating through this path?
You know, it's funny for you to for people to say, how can women navigate? Because women have been used to doing long hours over the years. You know, you have a child, you have a baby, you are doing long hours all night. Baby is waking up every 2 hours to feed, to change the diaper. So you're really doing long hours, really. Even in terms of managing the home, you are doing long hours. So how is that different from the man who goes to work, does his long hour, but even comes home to even sleep all through the night, you know? So in terms of experience, really, I think women even have more experience and more tenacity in doing longer, to handle longer hours because of, you know, the different things that they go on, being a homemaker, rearing the children, carrying other responsibilities, even just figuring out, you know. And women just have the capacity to be able to manage this, and it's inherent in women, really. I mean, my daughter is 6, but I do see some certain tendencies in her already, just because I'm like, is it because she's a woman that she already has this innate tendencies, you know, to mother, to do things that ordinarily maybe I don't see the brother doing, taking care of the home. And so being able to even also, she'll come back from school, she needs to do her homework. I'm not telling her to be the one to do her homework. She just knows she needs to do it, because I've said that before. So I think women even have the capacity to do longer hours than even the male folk. So that shouldn't be a reason why they shouldn't be considered. I mean, there are times when you need to make allowance for maybe other, you know, maybe when they're in that phase of bearing children and all that. But generally, women have the tenacity to also do long hours.
Right. Now, I was speaking with my baby cousin. Yes, yes, my baby cousin. And I asked her that she's still in GSS class, and I asked her that what arm of would she like to go into. She said that she wants to be a doctor, but she's not sure if she can cope in a science class, because they used to say that because all the guys are going to science class. And so, I mean, there's still conversations around that. And then I was trying to talk her into believing that you can do it. If that's what you want, you can do it. Now, let's bring it to, I mean, the finance and the economic part. I understand that finance and economics, there are different courses, right? And then we still find more men or more male students going into that part, as opposed to, how can we now start talking to women or children or young girls that they also can do that?
Yeah, I think it also begins from the home as well, you know, being able to encourage your child that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. And it should not be based on gender. it should be based on the ability, the talent, and the potential that you see in your child. For instance, how did I come into finance? I think growing up, my dad had said, oh, your sister is already into science. I think you should go into the business field. And that was how I was thinking I was going to be science inclined. And that's how I got pushed into finance. And I did well. But it doesn't stop because of the math or, the numeracy or the statistics part of finance. They don't just believe women don't like statistics. They will not be able to cope. Yeah. But that's not really true. Women, when given a task or given opportunities, can navigate around it. They're able to come out on top. They're able to do very well. Yeah. I mean, I myself, I look at myself for example. I've always loved numeracy. I've always loved statistics. I've always loved, things that involve calculations and all that. And I'm able to thrive. So if you find a woman or a young girl who has those interests, I think you should let her pursue her dream. You should be able to guide her properly. You shouldn't say, oh, because she's a lady, then she should go into arts or cultural stuff or things like that just because of those stereotypes. Women should be encouraged to pursue their dreams based on the skill set they have, the talents, the passion, or even what we notice that we think will be better for them as well. Yeah.
Yes. On a final note, I mean, how would you advise women in the capital markets to push on or to carry on the gender equality cause?
Yeah, I think we need to be supportive of one another. We need to share our stories more.
And the men too, please. Yes. I wanted to add that. Not only women. Not only women, yes. We need the men to also support us.
Yes, the men need to be on our side, championing our cause, pushing our narrative out there, celebrating women who are doing well in finance, celebrating women who are achieving great things, in their careers, putting them out there so that even the young girls can have role models that they can look up to, encouraging them, building their confidence, I think is important. And we need to also support one another. We need to share our stories more. We need to tell, the people around us the importance of the capital market and how the capital market can add to the larger societal prosperity, and encourage our young girls to also participate in that space. I think it's really important that we are at the forefront, the same as the men, championing these causes.
Yes. So at the end of the day, I believe that it's for everybody to come together and champion the cause for gender equality. So thank you very much. It was great speaking with you. I mean, I enjoyed this conversation. Now I have I have an understanding of what the capital market is like and what it feels like to be a woman in the capital market. And just like we said, it is not only for the women to champion the cause of the gender equality, but also for everybody to champion the cause for equality. Now, this is the part I love so much, where we're going to do the break the bias sign. Now, so collectively, let's do this together. Collectively, we're saying we are breaking the bias agenda, breaking the bias that's against women in the capital market as well. Thank you very much for doing this with me.
Thank you, Ayomide, for having me.
And on that note, we end today's episode of the Women Series. I hope you've learned one thing or the other on how we can all harness gender equality in the capital market. Thank you very much for watching this episode with me. And it was great speaking with Elizabeth Ekpo. Thank you very much. Did I miss that name? It was great speaking with Elizabeth Ekpo Udo. If you've got questions or you'd like to reach out to me, kindly send a mail to ayomide.oguntoye@proshare.com. If you'd like to read more on your personal finance and watch our news and read our news stories, log on to www.proshareng.com. Follow us on all our social media platforms showing on the screen. I would honestly love to hear from you on how you are doing with regards to gender equality. And until next time, thank you for watching.